is that the shirt orders that you guys just put in, like additional orders, are being fulfilled right now. So those will be done soon. And if you didn't pick up your shirt last semester and you still want to get it and you paid your dues, then you can message me and you can come get them. I have like a ton of mediums left. So if you still need yours, you're welcome to come pick it up. The next meeting is Sunday, April 11th. So that's the one after Easter Sunday. And we'll be holding elections on that meeting. So we'll be doing the voting live on like a Google form. So make sure that you're at that meeting so your vote will count. You won't be able to vote after the meeting. Last meetings will be Wednesday, April 28th and Wednesday, May 5th. So they're a week apart just so we don't interfere with like graduation and everything. So make sure you get those on your calendar if you don't have them already. And then last thing is that we'll be opening up a new shirt fundraiser with new designs and stuff in the coming weeks. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. And we'll do another like referral program like we did last time with the Google Sheet to where you can fill it out and whoever refers the most people will get a gift card. And yeah, I think that's all we have for announcements. So we'll go ahead and introduce our guests. We have some med students here to answer your guys' questions. I think all of them are here. I can see two of them, but hopefully they're all here. Okay, so we have Brandon, Kyle, Spencer, and Grace. So we'll just kind of go in that order, I guess, when you guys answer questions. If you like want to opt out of a question or whatever, that's no big deal too. But if you just want to introduce yourself first, we'll do like your name, year in med school, and then like where you went to undergrad, and maybe like your major in undergrad. Just whatever you want to tell us. We'll let you guys introduce yourselves. So Brandon, you can start, and then we'll have Kyle, Spencer, and then Grace.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brandon Kennedy. I'm a second-year medical student, and I went to KU for my undergrad. I was actually part of the Pre-Med Society when I was in undergrad, and my major was ecology evolutionary biology.
So I guess it's my turn. Can everybody hear me? Good, yeah, okay. So my name is Kyle Ta. I did my undergrad at the University of Kansas, and I majored in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology. I'm an MS1 over at UMKC right now.
Okay. For some reason, the video isn't working on my laptop. I think it's my turn to talk. But anyways, my name is Spencer Finkbeiner. I'm an M1 over in Kansas City as well. And I went to the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, and I was studying biomedical engineering.
Okay, I think it's my turn. Can everybody hear me? Okay, awesome. My name is Grace Noonan. I'm a first-year medical student at KU. I also went to KU for undergrad, and my major was human biology and psychology. And that's it.
Okay, sweet. So we'll just go in that order, and then I'll let you guys each answer the questions. And if you don't want to answer any of them, that's totally fine too. I will go ahead and start it off. What do you think your like biggest surprise was when you got to med school? Like something that you weren't expecting and then you just were like super surprised by when you got there?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I was really surprised, I think, by how everyone's kind of in the same boat. And like I always worried that I wasn't going to fit in well and that I would be the one that didn't know what was going on, but that's everyone. And you kind of work through that together. And people are great people at KU Med, and I'm sure they're great at UMKC too. And so I was really surprised by the fact that you could really rely on others and kind of push through things together when you don't know what you're doing.
So I'll preface with the fact that UMKC is a very different school from every other school. So it's honestly the majority of the MD students are a special case, because out of the 120 students, I think 100 of them are actually BA MD students. So they're probably a little bit closer in age to the rest of everybody in this meeting. But that being said, despite like differences in that way, and then also just differences in socioeconomic backgrounds, I think my biggest surprise was just being able to find my own kind of group of people that I felt comfortable with. And it was very easy and very like facilitated to kind of form a really close relationship with all my classmates that are my MD group in particular. But I think the sense of community is something that is sometimes overlooked, but it's really nice to have it when, you know, as Brandon was saying, everybody's kind of going through the same struggle boat. So it just helps to have a huge group of people to kind of have everybody's back.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree and second what Kyle said. The sense of community is like surprising, but yeah, you just kind of like transition right into it and fit right in. So just to I guess say something different. One thing that kind of surprised me was maybe like curriculum oriented was just how like holistic I felt like the teaching was, or the approach was to how we were being educated, because I kind of just expected to just be kind of, you know, hitting the books, looking at PowerPoint slides. And don't get me wrong, that's like the majority of what you're doing for class, but there's also quite a few speakers. Like you get to hear a lot of patient panels from people with different backgrounds. And there's a lot of just practice of clinical skills, even really early on in your first year. So I was pleasantly surprised by that.
I also second what everybody else said, especially the clinical skills aspect. I have two things I was really surprised about. One, again, the whole community thing. I was so shocked at how many like new friends I made that I would consider some of my best friends now. And then I also was shocked about how quickly you adjust and how quickly you kind of quote unquote like learn how to learn, and you become really efficient at learning much more material in a shorter amount of time. And I think a lot of that is just due to the curriculum and just kind of you're forced to do it. So that's what I would say I was surprised by.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open it up to you guys for questions. You can go ahead and just unmute and talk, and then if we have like too many people going at once, then we'll just do the raise hand function. So whoever wants to ask next can go.
How many hours a day are you actually like in class?
So class at KU starts at 9 a.m. and you usually have around 3 lectures, give or take, 3 days of the week, and then 2 days of the week on test week. And then there's also some integrated classes. So KU, I like to compare it to like Hogwarts. We get split up into different societies, and within those societies, we get split into small groups. And those small groups we have classes with, which are called CBCLs and PBLs. And those are 3-hour-long classes. And those happen, I think, 3 days a week on non-test weeks. And you have a PBL and a CBCL on test weeks. And so actual class time, roughly give or take 4 hours, 5 hours, including those PBLs, but some days you're off, you know, you're out by noon.
Just to quickly add about KU's curriculum, I really like it because for the lecture portions, the ones that are 9 to 12, they are all recorded. So I almost never am in class or watching live. I usually watch a lecture at like 9 or 10 and then 1 and then maybe like in the evening. So I really spread it out and it is extremely helpful.
I second that. I don't think I went to one single class, so.
So I think my schedule really just depends on a day-by-day basis. UMKC doesn't have a structured schedule like KU does. So some days I can be sitting in quote unquote lecture, like time is set aside for that from like 9. And then some days it runs until like 5 p.m. So it's like a 9 to 5 job. But that being said, whenever we do have days like that, it's usually followed by like a day where we have like one class. So it averages out to like maybe 4 or 5 hours of lecture. But study time is a completely different thing because I spend a lot more time studying than I actually do in the actual lecture.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just am going to agree with pretty much what everything the panelists said. It's I go to KU as well, and like it's the structure, it sounds like it's a little more regimented, but yeah, it's 3 to 5 hours of class time a day, but you're spending much more time kind of preparing for that and also applying that in different ways.
Hi. Based on your obvious success as medical school applicants, do you feel like pre-med students, when applying, should have some kind of profile where everything they did in undergrad aims towards like medical school and being a doctor?
I don't believe so. I took a route to utilize college to explore my own passions and certain classes, and in doing so, those classes that you're really passionate about, you get to form some really great relationships with some professors who end up being some of your letters of rec. So indirectly, it is for medical school, but you're also exploring those passions and get to make some great relationships. My research had nothing to do with medicine. I studied how animal feedlot operations affect water chemistry in Kansas, and it's something I was interested in at the time. And but like I said, you get to make some great friendships and great letters of rec through doing some things that you're passionate about.
I would also add that they love to see like well-rounded applicants, and that often comes off as like well-rounded in the sense that you're volunteering and doing research and you're getting clinical hours. They also mean well-rounded just in like interests, I guess. Like I was a huge runner, and I think they really like that because a lot of people are runners out there. The more that you are interested in or have passions about, the more patients you'll be able to connect with. And I think that that really comes through on your interviews and on your application.
So I will say that I definitely did not kind of quote unquote create a profile for myself in terms of like, medical school as the end goal. I did go into KU with the thought that I wanted to go to medical school, but I didn't tailor all of my experiences to that necessarily. So I was like a student group for an LGBT plus organization in undergrad, did that for 3 years, mostly not medically related whatsoever, but that's what I spent the majority of my time on. The research I was in was also not really related to kind of like what kind of medicine I wanted to go into. It was just like the psychology of like formation relationship, and I really enjoyed that. And I also really honestly did not go into my applications with a whole lot of medical experience either, because first generation student, socioeconomically really not well off. So at one point I was working like 3 part-time jobs, and like none of them were even close to medically related. But being able to talk about like that experience, talking about like the hustle, talking about how like, you know, how does being a server translate to working with the patient population? I think that's key. So it doesn't really have to be like directly related to medicine. You don't have to go into your activities thinking that, but the experiences that you get out of it will be applicable when you're talking about how you can interact with people.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well put. I think that from my experience, at least, what medical schools are looking for is passion and drive and evidence of that. Like for my case, I didn't know I wanted to go to medical school until probably sometime in my sophomore year of college. And I was in an engineering degree, and I just kind of pivoted and started doing some more medically related activities. But before that, I'd already been doing a lot of service, and honestly, I spent a lot of time in like my interviews and my application talking about my hobbies. Like I talked a lot about soccer, which is something that I do like on a weekly basis, or used to do a lot more before the pandemic, of course. But yeah, so I think again they're looking for that drive and that interest and just that curiosity. Yeah, but no, I think being an individual is probably more important, and then kind of tailoring that and letting that inform your future career or what you want to do as a career.
I have a question about pursuing your interests. So when you all are talking about that, does that mean that you were just part of a group or maybe an organization outside of KU, or were you like did you strive to become a leader in maybe like a running group or a soccer group? Sorry.
So my journey mostly started with being selective when picking my classes every semester about, picking things that I wanted to learn about on, including the prereqs for medicine. And in doing so, I got into some really cool, ethical, small 10 people size classes. And so with that, a lot of professors like to talk about what they're passionate about. And I had a couple professors and who I shared passions with. And then connecting with them, I then transferred into, research projects or things like that. And so that's kind of how, my route was. I don't know about the others.
I mean, I think the key is just finding something that you want to do. I don't know if it's kind of like a no duh thing, but you don't have to do anything in particular. It doesn't matter if it's in the community or if it's like at KU. You should probably get a mix of both, honestly, but you shouldn't look for the experience with the idea like this is for my resume. You should just, if it just like falls into place that you're interested in it and it's something that you're passionate about, your passion will show through the commitments that you've made for that organization or for that hobby or that activity. And then the way you write about it will also show that. So like, I honestly never expected to ever be a student leader. That was not my goal getting into KU, but I saw that there was a need in the community, and then I was like, there's an opportunity for me to fulfill that, so I might as well take it. And it wasn't like I can write about this for my medical school experience and they're going to love it kind of thing. It was more of just like, it made me happy, and you're going to probably burn out when you're at medical school. So you might as well kind of enjoy some of your undergrad at the very least.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I would just say that I tend to take more of like a kind of laid back and natural approach to it, which is again just look for the things that you like, find things that you're passionate about, and then just show up. If you're showing up and you're putting the time in, you will find yourself being more committed, more interested, and then that's sort of how you organically take on more of a leadership role and start to make more of a difference in whatever group or organization you're in. And I will say it's nice to have that kind of leadership experience, because that does kind of, I mean, obviously it's great for a resume, but I mean, it helps build skills, but on the flip side, it's also just good to relax sometimes. Like I play soccer just to kind of like let loose, and I would do it for a few hours like every weekend in undergrad. And I just would go out and play with a few friends, or if no one wanted to go, I would just go find some pickup games. So again, it was just like there was no expectation from that, but because I did it so much, I have a lot of good stories from it. So just how it kind of happens over time.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add. I was actually asked in my interview how I like what my favorite way to relax is. So make sure that you're doing that in undergrad.
I want to chime in just one more time because I am in the wonderful world of STEP studying right now. And I would do absolutely anything to go back to undergrad. And I know that right now in the moment, it probably seems like you have this goal and that's all that you want to work towards. But like these 4 years of your life are really going to, you're never going to have it again. And medical school is different and it's got a lot of different commitments and a lot of things are out of your control time wise and you have a lot of things that you're dedicated to. And so I second what everyone else just said, but I really want to emphasize to enjoy your undergrad and have fun and do things that you're really passionate about while you can.
I have a question. How do you handle the burnout like when you get to that point? And also, how do you manage your time to where you can still have some sort of time with friends and family?
So I would love to answer this because my roommate and I are actually doing research about burnout right now, and why it is so prevalent in medical school, and ways to prevent it. But I think one way is it's easy to get overwhelmed, but you slowly kind of develop these habits to make yourself less stressed out, I guess. And my way is to just like trust myself. I think that's another big thing is that you really have to like gain a trust in yourself that you are going to learn the information, you are going to pass that test, especially if you've done it in the past. Like there's no reason why you shouldn't, especially if you just keep doing what you're doing. And that is extremely reassuring. And as long as you can kind of provide yourself with that reassurance, then you find yourself more free to going out and getting dinner with friends or seeing family or anything along those lines. But yeah, I think that's all really important.
So I'm a person that I don't think that medicine is my sole identity. And there are some people like that medicine is truly their identity, and that's wonderful. And so I try to prioritize myself and other people and doing other things outside of medical school. I think that that's really important. And you need to recognize early on that that's necessary for you to perform well in this environment. And I also second what Grace just said too. And I think that burnout is such a problem in medical school because everyone is super driven and motivated to do well. But the other thing I just want to say, and it's kind of already been said before with the first question, is you're with some great people who are with going through the same kind of stress. And I recommend, because I do it all the time, I really lean on them for support and help when I get stressed too. And so, yeah.
So I am honestly not the most regimented person, which is nice during COVID because if a school hasn't already transitioned to being like mostly online, they have done that now, which means that most of the lectures are recorded. So if there's a day where you just feel like you just are not absorbing any more information, that's the point where I just take a break. And then if I have an easier day tomorrow, then I'll just tack it onto there. I think setting goals for the day, like I'm going to get through like lecture X, Y, Z, I'm going to write notes about it, not really having a strict timeline that you feel like you have to get is key. Especially for me, because like I still set aside like an hour and a half, 2 hours every single day to work out, because that's my me time. If I'm sitting on my couch all day just doing lectures, I will burn out, and I know that for a fact. And then just also forming that network that can support you, honestly key. I'm in a group chat with a few people. We talk all day. We complain about the lectures. We ask each other for help. We every Friday night get over and like watch a movie or like RuPaul's Drag Race and cook dinner for each other. Like just, especially, you know, it's a little hard to just talk about it to like family or other people that haven't been through medical school. So these people that you are with, they're basically your coworkers, they are your best friends, and they will be there to support you if you need it. And most of the time, I would say other people are also burning out, so it's a good idea for everybody to just take a break for a minute.
Yeah, no, just to add a little bit more on that, give some context for myself. Yeah, I think it's important to make sure you're relaxing some, obviously. I try to kind of schedule it in a little bit. And usually that ends up being after tests. So depending on what your test schedule is for the school you're at, just like every time after a test day, it's always on Fridays. So usually I just take the rest of that Friday night into Saturday and just kind of decompress a little bit before I ramp back up into the next block. And so just really taking some time to do something that I enjoy. And then as far as just like general time management stuff and balancing medical school life, one habit that I have gotten into, which has really kind of helped me to not procrastinate, is if I need to do something and it's kind of nagging me, like it's dishes or something like small that just kind of piles up, I just ask myself if I could do it within like 5 or 10 minutes. Just do it. Like, just don't even think about it. So it kind of becomes more of a habit. So that way you stay on top of the little things. And then as far as like extracurricular stuff and like additional stuff, one thing that I've been trying to do, which I mean, it's hit or miss, but I try and schedule in like sign up for one additional thing each week. And if it's a really stressful test week, maybe I won't get to it, but like volunteering for an hour a week or just scheduling in something. Usually it ends up being volunteering of some sort, but yeah, just making sure you're scheduling in and making time for yourself, but also just ways for you to explore your career and the opportunities that med school provides.
I'd like to just quickly piggyback what Spencer just said, because I think that recently that's been my number one way of relaxing, actually, is going to JDoc, which is a free clinic that KU students run in Kansas City. And, you know, this experience at the beginning in your first phase of medical school, you're just studying and taking tests, and you kind of can lose sight of why you're here and why you're working this hard. And then you get to see a patient who, you know, you can provide free medications for and all these things. And that interaction is really exciting and personal. And so I definitely agree with what Spencer just said.
I have a question about like the extracurricular stuff. Like, is medical school all just studying, or are there like programs and clubs and stuff like a normal university? Like, I know Grace mentioned she's doing like a research project, and you mentioned like JDoc. Like, what's some other things that you guys are involved in?
Okay, so there are so many clubs and so many extracurricular activities that are provided here that it's sometimes overwhelming. So I am in like the cardiology interest group, and I am on MSA, and like I am in a rec league volleyball game, or it's every Sunday and stuff like that. But there's definitely something for everyone. It's similar to undergrad in that aspect, but a lot of it is more just like medical focused. Also, something I forgot to add in the last question is that you will, never mind, I'll mention it later. But anyway, that is all I have to say, is that there's lots of clubs, lots of things to get into if you want.
I have a quick question. What classes do you guys think you took in undergrad that helped prepare you the most for med school?
Mammalian physiology at KU, and that was extremely helpful. I think that's the one I go back to the most. It's like, I'm so glad that I learned this before, and biochemistry.
You know, I didn't take it. If I got to go back, I know it's stressful at KU to take, and I know it's really hard, but and it's losing focus in medical school, but just having the knowledge of where everything is in the body, how it looks, I think is really important. So I didn't take anatomy, but I would recommend taking anatomy probably, looking back at it. But I also, you know, kind of on this trend that medical schools aren't just looking for medicine, is that I think a lot of my discussion classes and higher when I became upperclassmen and smaller class sizes and having those conversations really helped because a lot of your interview is ethical and talks about ethics, and you need to be well versed in ethics, and it gives you a great perspective of patients and all different kinds of people's backgrounds, which is super important for medicine. And so I liked those classes, and I think that that actually has continued to come up quite a bit in medicine so far.
So I would definitely second anatomy. You might look at the hand and think like, oh, that's not too bad. But when you learn about it, it is hell. So it was a rough time for me and my classmates because like I would say probably about half of us didn't have anatomy. Seconding biochem, microbio is also very helpful. The courses that I wish I took that I didn't take, histology would have helped a lot. MAMPhys would have helped a lot. Immunology, we're kind of like touching into right now, but I feel like that comes into play a little bit later. But that's also a course that's really recommended at KU for a good reason, I feel. But I would also second what Brandon said about ethics courses. So I also got my minor in philosophy, and I was 1 credit away from getting a major in philosophy. So I took literally all of the ethics courses that KU had, and that was like another thing that I just did for myself because it sounded cool. I just liked breaking down reasoning and figuring it out. But it also comes into play when you're literally making a life or death situation. It helps you analyze the different values they have to take into place, and it also puts into perspective like the different actions that you have to take. Even like the most small actions that you think you could take in a clinic could have major effects, and having the critical thinking and then also the ethical analysis to go behind it will help.
Yeah, so I don't know how helpful I'm gonna really be on this question because it's a little bit funny, but I kind of like barely squeaked in like with my application as far as like prereqs went because I pivoted kind of pretty late in the game, like started taking a bunch of the classes junior year that I needed to. So I'm trying to think. I ended up taking physiology for my major, which has actually ended up being pretty helpful, especially because we had a physiology lab where I learned how to like take blood pressure and I actually learned how to take an EKG and stuff like that. So like basic clinical skills, and that was like that's ended up being pretty helpful. So anything where you can kind of learn hands-on stuff, I would say, whether it's in class or extracurriculars, would probably be pretty beneficial. I guess, but as far as like wishing things that I wish I took, I'd have to agree with Kyle that histology would have been super helpful. And every block of learning that you do, you end up going kind of into the microscopic structure and physiology of things, and just having a better understanding of tissues going into med school probably would have been nice. But again, like so many people don't have this background going in, haven't taken all of these niche classes, so don't feel bad if you can't fit it in or if you haven't taken it going into med school. It'll be a little bit of a struggle, but so many people are in the same boat.
Hey guys, I just had a question that I wanted to ask about kind of resume builders. And besides like doing clubs and stuff in university here, what are some things like jobs and internships that you think would help make you stand out on a med school application?
I I'm in the belief that it doesn't matter what you pick. Um, I think it matters more the time, the dedication, displaying of like perseverance and just those life skills. Because that's really what medical school is all about. Can you work hard? Can you persevere through hard times? Can you communicate? Can you make good relationships with people? Um, and so I think, like it's already been discussed, is I would find a passion of yours and find avenues that you can pursue that passion, and just work really hard at that. And I think that will reflect what you're trying to in a resume. Um,
I would definitely suggest, and this is kind of going off what Brandon just said, but quality over quantity for sure. Um, and you don't have to center like all of your like resume builders around one specific passion you have, because then you would just be like a one-sided applicant. But it is important to have those like bigger activities or groups or leadership roles or whatever to talk about, because the more passionate you are about it, the easier it's going to be to talk about it in interviews and write about it on your application. So the more passion, the easier it is just throughout the whole application process, and the more fun you'll have doing it. So I can't give specific answers because I don't even, but yeah, just follow your passions, I guess.
So I'm going to be an oddball, and I will recommend maybe finding a clinical job. So I was actually an applicant for, I'm going to say 2 cycles. Really, it was 3 cycles, but the first time I don't really count it because I was just being a little arrogant, sophomore trying to graduate early. But I mean, for perspective, like I was a server for about 2 years, really loved that job. I even picked up like management positions. I became a bartender. So, you can talk about growth and leadership and capacity like that. But at the same time, if you have the opportunity and like the financial means to maybe take like a small job in a hospital or in a clinic, it doesn't even have to be like clinically related. You don't have to be a CNA. You don't have to be like a phlebotomist or anything. But just being exposed to that does kind of put you a little bit closer to being adjacent to showing your interest in medicine. And also, I think it just gives you a little more perspective on how hospitals and clinics work before you get into that, which isn't super necessary, but it does kind of put things into perspective before you go in.
I'd also like to add about the clinical stuff. One clinical job that is not really well known out there is being a scribe, like a medical scribe. So I worked as a scribe in an ER that served like primarily like underserved populations way up in North Missouri. So that was really helpful. And I know that there's like a need for medical scribes out there, and it's really nice learning how to write a note beforehand. It's just something else to do that's not like a CNA job. But if you want more information about that, feel free to contact me.
Another thing to plug too, I don't know if it's like a major thing, but in I want to say May or June, I became a COVID tester. So like I was like swabbing people and everything. That was a really nice job. Decent pay, almost got heat stroke, but it was a good experience. I was in the hospital. I was able to interact with literally like 150 patients in a day, sometimes. So it was a really good experience, and I think it wasn't like the only thing that differentiated my application this past year to get into school. That's a important part that I can't overlook. And also for perspective, I know timeline might seem a little bit weird, but UMKC starts classes in January. So I am starting a semester ahead of other people.
I'll just real quick say as well, since we're talking to KU, that LMH is wonderful in allowing students to get in and volunteer. I spent 3 years in LMH on the oncology unit once a week. It might seem like you might not have enough time to do that, but kind of like with what JDoc is providing me right now, you get to at least have some interaction with patients, and it's reminding you why you're working so hard. And I do think clinical experience is really important, and it gives you a perspective of like the different roles and all of that. And it also probably allows you to make a better decision about what your interests are in medicine.
Yeah, no, just to add in a little bit, I agree with that entirely. I also volunteered at LMH for a few years, and I think some kind of clinical experience going in or while you're applying to med school before you apply is super important. Just so, again, you know the roles and you've kind of solidified that this is something that you're interested in, you're passionate about, and that you could really buy into. And as far as like jobs for resume builders, going back to the question from a little bit ago, like I do think again that it's more so about passion and buying into the experience and making sure that you're getting something out of it. Because if you really commit a lot of time to it, you enjoy it, and you bring your best self to your job or your activity, you're gonna get experience. You're gonna become a better person. And as far as like resume building goes, that's how I've gotten probably most of my letters of recommendation. So hope that helps.
I had a quick question. I went to a webinar and the speaker was someone who had gotten into Yale for medical school or something like that. And one of his suggestions was to make your personal statement like as special as possible, like try to make it stand out, because everybody who's applying to medical school is pretty smart anyway. I mean, it's a pretty difficult field to just go into just for fun. So when you were writing your personal statement, how did you go about that and try to make it special so that when people were viewing it, like it stood out to them? Or what was your approach to that?
I'd like to take this one first, if that's okay. So they always said not to talk about, you know, depression, death, divorce, you know, trauma, such like that. And unfortunately for my life experience, that's a lot of what my life consisted of. And I kind of was gutsy, and I talked all about that and going through ups and downs and going through traumatic experiences and going through depression. And I included that on my resume. And a lot of people will tell you not to. And I think that that's changing as medicine's growing a little bit more, that, you know, it's okay to talk about your feelings in medicine. I think for a long time it wasn't. And I would just say be as honest as possible. Like, don't put on a face. Don't say things that you think they want to hear, because you're right. There's a lot of smart people. And when they look at your resume, they're going to see grades. And then when they interview you, they're going to ask about everything else. And so you really do need to realize that early on, so that you can start forming those passions and talk about those in your personal statements, but really dig into, why is this the field that I want to do? And, you know, I had a part where, you know, when I first started my application, I had a lot of imposter syndrome that I wasn't going to get in, or I didn't belong. And I kind of delayed applying because of that. But once I started writing that and talking about why this is important to me, it made me realize, you know, how important medicine is to me. And that's why I want to do it. And so my recommendation is just be honest and trust yourself and trust your life story, that it's good enough, and that it played a role in you and developing you, and you're at this point, and so why not you? And so talk about yourself in that way.
I would like to, sorry.
Oh, you're
I would
good.
like
You can go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna say I'd like to second all of that, especially because I also talked about some trauma, even though they tell you not to. But if you take that trauma or experience or anything that you're kind of like building off of, and you really talk about how it changed you to be a better physician in the future, or to be a better candidate for that medical school, then go ahead and talk about it. Also, like, I talked a lot about how I saw medicine as like a service, technically. It is. Ours and others like that is our job. And just about how passionate I was about that. And just kind of figuring out, like, again, why you want to be the doctor, and also why you would make a great physician.
So I get very passionate about personal statements because, I mean, the first one that I wrote was okay. It was good. It was definitely heavily filtered. I literally just talked about, like, you know, why I would enjoy being a doctor, like what led me to this decision, how have I like shown personal growth that relates to how I could be a doctor. And like, I applied to 4 schools. KU said it was a perfectly fine personal statement. Mayo said it was a perfectly fine personal statement, but I didn't get into either of those schools my first year applying. So it doesn't really, I mean, who do you believe? The experiences or what they're telling you? And it might not have been a bad personal statement, but this past year, I decided to literally just remove all of my filters. I talked about being queer, I talked about being poor, I talked about coming from a broken household, and I did arguably one of the things that literally nobody ever recommends doing, which is talk about a bad medical experience that you've had. So I talked about me having a homophobic doctor at some point, but, you know, I contrasted that with the fact that, you know, by the time I got to KU, I was able to meet a lot of these LGBT plus friendly doctors who were well-versed, well-educated, and were able to get me the help that I needed. So I think if you're going to be a negative Nancy in some way, then you should probably kind of flip the coin and say what you can. You know, I mean, give a counterpoint to it, because at the end of the day, nobody wants a doctor who is all doom and gloom.
No, I really love hearing about your guys' different processes for sure. I had like a slightly different route and approach just because I don't know if KU offers this, but the University of Minnesota has a 1-credit seminar on writing a personal statement, which I thought was kind of funny. And I took that. And for me, it wasn't so much about like learning how to write it. It was just a way to motivate me, because to pass the class, you had to write a personal statement. So that was a really good way for me to kind of sit down and write revisions, which I thought was really important, and kind of apply a writing process to my personal statement. And I thought having that kind of structure was really good in writing something that was ultimately professional and that I was proud of. And just to offer the flip side of the coin, I didn't speak about like anything super, I would say, serious in my personal statement. I think it's important to be genuine, obviously, but for me, my genuineness was just speaking about my particular journey, which was just a lot about just my personal interests, like how I decided I want to go into medicine, that transition from engineering, like while I was already kind of on a path to a different degree. But it also just talked about my interests, my hobbies, just like soccer, where I'm from. I'm from a smaller town in Kansas, and then also just where I wanted to go and ultimately what I wanted to do with my degree. So, yeah, I mean, I know this is probably just a lot of general information, but I would just say to kind of lean into who you are, which is, I think, kind of what all of the panelists have suggested. Like, if you have something serious and meaningful to you that you want to talk about, I think the personal statement is a great place to do that. But even if you're just funny and you want to keep it lighthearted, I would just lean into your personality and what it is you're good at. Tell a joke if you're funny, or like if you're a super responsible, dependable person, show that in your writing. Like, I think that's the best way to make an impactful personal statement.
Yeah, I just would like to say that showing is definitely better than saying too. And one interesting tactic that I use, and I didn't even realize it, it's just the way that I started writing and talking about my personal experience, was I actually told it in like a story narrative format, and put them in my actual experience. And I think that, you know, might have helped. I don't know. But I actually, the person that I researched for, my PI right now in medical school, is the person who interviewed me And so we talk about it, sometimes, and he says that it was a great personal statement. But I think that what medicine wants to see, at least at KU, is I think Spencer said it best, was that genuineness. Like, who are you on a piece of paper, and are you a genuine person? And any way that you can convey that or want to convey that, then you should take that route and be confident in.
I'll ask another one. What do you think is like something you wish you would have spent more time doing, or maybe like you spent too much time doing something and you wish you would have spent less time doing it in undergrad?
I wish.
You go first.
Okay. I was going to say that I just wish I would have relaxed more in undergrad. I was so focused about just getting into medical school. That was my end goal. That I never took time to really enjoy where I was. I also see myself doing that now. I am not currently in the STEP studying since I am still first year. So I'm trying to take all the extra time I have and just enjoy it before I have to start studying for STEP like Brandon is. So yeah, just enjoy where you are now.
Yes, all you first years on this phone call, take as much time as possible and enjoy life while you can, because this is horrendous. I second Grace 100%. I worked way too damn hard in undergrad. And it got me here, obviously. Hard work matters and doing that matters. But I think in retrospect, I definitely could see places where I overworked and I missed out on some really great opportunities. And I'm really close with my college friends, and we're really fortunate to have some great experiences together. But that was so up and down and dissected by all the times that I couldn't make a commitment to them. And I think that, like I mentioned at the beginning, like, this is 4 years of your life that you'll never get back. It's 4 years of your life where you're in, a different city maybe, or you have these people around you that you might not have around you anymore. Like, I had a friend that moved, across the country, and so I don't get to see him, and I wish that I spent more time with him in undergrad. And so I would recommend being present in the moment, finding a way to be present, and knowing that what you're going through is special and that it's something that you'll never get to have again. And medicine will change you a bit, and it will change what your life looks like. And so this is a great time for you to really enjoy yourself.
I think this discussion goes back to kind of the point that we had several questions ago. Like, you shouldn't do things to tailor to going to medical school. I think that if you spend your time doing what you love and making sure that you're taking care of yourself, then you won't really have any regrets in terms of the time you spent in undergrad. So I did my best to always make time for my friends. If I had to study, sometimes I would just study on my phone while I'm on an exercise bike or something. These things aren't mutually exclusive, and if you care about it, you will make time for it. And hopefully in the moment, I know sometimes it's hard, but hopefully in the moment you realize what is important to you and you don't skip out on it.
Yeah, no, I think that's all super important advice to just kind of explore what makes you happy and what you're interested in. As far maybe a little bit more geared towards the medical side of things, since I again kind of pivoted late, there's a few skills and things that I wish I would have gotten into more when I was in undergraduate, that it would have just been fun to kind of add on. And that would have been, honestly, probably a second language would have been super interesting, because there's a lot of cool experiences that you can have and experience more fully if you can communicate with more people. So that's just an additional thing. I know obviously it's that's a huge commitment, so giving that advice to somebody isn't always going to be it's not always super actionable. And then on top of that, one thing that I started doing towards the end of my undergraduate career, which I was super happy with, was taking fun extra courses. And I wish I would have been able to do this more or started doing this more earlier in college, because the last 2 semesters of college, I took fencing and rock climbing, like fencing, like sword fighting. And I can honestly say that those 2 1-credit classes have brought me like more joy, have led to more interesting conversations, and have done just much more for my mental health and happiness than any engineering course could ever have done. So if you can find ways to fit things like that to your schedule, it'll help you grow as a person, and I think just make you a more well-rounded individual.
I think we have time for one more question if someone wants to ask one more really quick before we go.
I wanted to see if I could ask about interviews. So like, I understand that we need to be genuine in a way, but what is that? Is it like, sorry, I'm trying to phrase properly. Like, I heard that interviews are just a small process and you're technically already in if you can just prove you're genuine. But what is that edge that makes us successful during the interview process for medical school?
So for me, what I did was one, when I said like being genuine, I just meant like be yourself. Don't try to be someone that you think that they want you to be, because then you just come across disingenuine, and that's not a good look. And so just be who you are, and have confidence in that when you're interviewing. Don't, necessarily change a lot. The KU has a career center, and I don't remember what his name was, but I spent 3 or 4 different meetings with someone where he got a hold of some practice questions that KU had used before from like some deep web Reddit search. And so I met with him like 3 or 4 times, like at coffee shops, and it wasn't something super serious. I didn't dress up for it or anything. It was just, let's go through and just take a couple questions and see how I answer them on the spot. I do believe that I've heard the same thing, that there's some truth to that, they look at your resume, they think you're good enough for an interview, and it becomes kind of an even playing field. But I would just bank on, like, you're good enough to be there. You're good enough. Why not you? There's lots of smart people, but why not you? And just be yourself in the interview, and that will take you a long way. I will say one more thing before I get off that. It's important to look up ethics and to know some medical ethical stuff and dilemmas, because they do ask you about medical ethics quite a bit, and it really depends about which interviewer that you'll have. But medical ethics tends to come up a decent amount.
I'm a bit of a pessimist, and I think that honestly, the interviewing process, like, as long as you prepare yourself, you will do as well as you possibly can. Look up your ethics, prepare some little quips about yourself if they ask any personal questions. Don't have like a rehearsed answer, but just have like a general outline in your head of what you're going to say. But it also depends on how quickly and how well you're going to be able to click with your interviewer. That's a very big thing. Personally, because of that, I actually enjoyed the multiple mini interview format a lot more, because I just was able to treat every question as if it was like a different person, because it was a different person. So I think the thing that gets a lot of people during interviews is, you give an answer that isn't like super strong or that you're not super confident about. But if you let yourself get frazzled and get nervous and you mess up the rest of your questions, that's the point where it kind of falls apart. So just being able to recompose yourself, because that's also going to be something that you're going to do in real life as well. So that's probably the biggest thing. It's just being able to calm yourself down in the middle of an interview.
I showed up to interview day without a belt on, and I forgot my photo that KU required you to have so that they know what you'd look like for your interview. You give it to them right when you walk in the door. I forgot both things. And so it wasn't a good look for me, but I just thought that was a funny story.
No, I appreciate that. Like, it's your interview. I mean, you can be confident and like prepare in so many different ways, but it might not be. It's never going to be perfect. So just accepting that and just trying to enjoy it and learn something from the experience. Yeah. So something will probably throw you off on the day of, and just try and power through it. As far as like more general advice, I mean, I would just say, like, just to kind of hit some of the talking points again, like just be prepared. Like, just the general preparation stuff does matter. And to kind of echo what Brandon said earlier, I don't know about any like questions or like question banks, but like these interviewers are kind of told how to structure their interviews, and they probably ask the same questions every year or some variation on it. So if you practice, like, if you just Google medical school interview questions and you practice like some answers to them and kind of synthesize some answers, it'll help, like, legitimately, because I looked some up, especially, again, what Brandon brought up regarding medical ethics. Like, I just looked up some common questions and sort of just kind of prepared some short answers that I could expand on. And sure enough, one showed up in my interview. So it's the preparation does kind of help to in those situations. And then finally, I would just say, like, again, I mean, you want to express your own personality, but when I went into my interview, I was just like super amped up because it's kind of a high stress situation. But that kind of manifested in me being like super enthusiastic. And in my group interview, it was like super infectious, and it kind of just ended up being a fun conversation. So I would just say try and just bring in like a happy face, bring in some positive energy. And again, if you're prepared, like, I think only the best will shine through. So yeah, assuming this is, I think our last question. Thanks for letting me speak to you guys today. And good luck to all of you wherever you are in your medical journey.
I was going to go ahead and add a couple more things about the interview. My biggest thing was just being personable. As long as you're able to keep a conversation going and just seem, again, genuine with your interviewer, they're going to like you. Also, being extremely excited and passionate about medicine. I think the worst thing that you can portray is just being aloof to science and medicine as a whole. Also, like, my interviewer, I remember, asked me why, like, I didn't want to go into nursing or PT or basically any other medical fields. So knowing why you want to be the doctor is a big deal, because what I've learned a lot in school is that it is a team effort from every realm of medical professional. So know other professions within the medical world and maybe why you're leaning towards MD instead of the other ones, or DO or whatever. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the interview.
Okay, I think that's it for tonight. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and answer some questions for us. I know I have Grace's email, but if you three want to share your emails with Harry, then I'll send them in our chat so that people can reach out if they have more questions that we can get to. And thank you guys again, and I'll let you all go, and we will see you next time. Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Good luck, everybody.
Yeah, good luck. Thank you. And please reach out, please, if you need anything.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It kind of sounded like they wanted their contacts to be
Yeah.
shared. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll put Grace's in the group me, and then if you just want to put the rest of theirs in there, then we can do that.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll just make sure that they're okay with their number.
Yeah, if they want. If not, no big deal.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if they want their email instead or something, I can do that too.
Yeah, I have Grace's number, but I'm just gonna give them their email just so they're not like blowing up her phone.
Yeah.
So I think that was good though. I feel like we had a well-rounded a well-rounded group to speak, so that was good.
Yeah, definitely. Those were good people. And the questions too,
Cool.
they weren't all just about the same
I
thing
know,
as well.
yeah.
That was also good.
Yeah. I'm glad it went well. It was
Yeah.
good.
That's good.
Okay. Well, thanks, Harry. I'll talk to you
Yeah.
later.
Sounds good. See ya.
See ya.